Okay, get ready, because today we are diving headfirst into something straight out of science fiction. But here's the thing, it's not fiction anymore. We're talking about a world where biology and technology are literally fusing together. And no, I don't mean clunky robots that kind of look like animals. We're talking about actual living, breathing machines. Just let that sink in for a second. The most advanced, most sophisticated piece of surveillance technology out there, it might not be a fancy drone made of metal and plastic. It might just be an actual beetle, quietly crawling up a wall, completely and utterly invisible to everyone. You see, for years, the best engineers tried to copy nature. They built these tiny, complex robots designed to fly like insects. It's a field called biomimicry. But they always hit the same wall: power. The batteries are just too heavy and they die way too fast. So the new approach, it's a total game changer. It's called biohybridization. And the idea is, why copy nature when you can just hack it? We're merging our tech directly with a living organism. And this right here, this shows you exactly why this is so brilliant. Look at the difference. Your best robotic bug runs out of juice in, a few minutes? And it sounds like a tiny buzzing lawnmower. But a cyborg insect? Oh man, it's powered by its own metabolism. It literally sips sugar from its own body. It can go for hours. And stealth? It's perfectly silent. It's perfectly camouflaged because it is the real thing. I mean, how can you possibly compete with nature's 350 million year head start on research and development? You can't.
All right, so that brings us to the big question. How in the world do you actually pilot a living beetle? It sounds completely impossible, right? Well, the science behind it is both incredibly elegant and, frankly, a little bit unsettling. The secret sauce here is a technique called neuromodulation. Now, think of it like this. Scientists aren't using a joystick to force the beetle to move. It's much more subtle. They're basically hot-wiring its nervous system, sending these tiny electrical whispers directly to its muscles, whispers that the beetle's brain interprets as its own commands. And the process itself is just, wow, it's shockingly elegant. First, surgeons implant these incredibly fine, hair-thin electrodes right into the beetle's flight muscles. Then an operator, maybe hundreds of feet away, sends a wireless signal. A tiny, low-voltage pulse zaps the left muscle just for a millisecond. That pulse causes the left wing to beat just a tiny fraction slower than the right. And the result? A perfect, controlled turn to the left, all executed on command. Of course, to make all this happen, the beetle needs its own little flight computer. And that's where the backpack comes in. It's got the brain, a tiny microcontroller. It's got the antenna, a wireless receiver to pick up commands. And it has the neural stimulators, the little bits that actually talk to the beetle's muscles. Now here's where my mind gets blown. This is the engineering challenge. That entire package, the brain, the antenna, the power source, the whole shebang, has to weigh less than 2 grams. We're talking about the weight of a couple of paper clips. If it's any heavier, the beetle just can't fly properly. The level of miniaturization this requires is just absolutely incredible. So what about that power source, right? A battery is still too heavy. Well, this is where the solution gets truly brilliant. Why not make the insect its own generator? One method uses something called a biofuel cell that literally sips the sugar, a sugar called trehalose, right out of the beetle's blood to generate electricity. Another method paints the wings with a special film that creates a charge from the simple mechanical stress of flapping. The beetle powers the tech just by flying. It's amazing. And as you can probably guess, the military is all over this. DARPA, the Pentagon's research arm, has an approach that's, well, it's next level. Instead of just gluing a backpack onto an adult beetle, they implant the electronics during the pupa stage, when it's still in its cocoon. As the insect grows and transforms, its own biological tissue actually fuses around the silicon. It creates a perfectly integrated, permanent cyborg from birth. So that's the how. It's incredible stuff. But what about the why? I mean, this isn't just some crazy lab experiment for fun. This technology is being developed for very specific missions, with some really profound real-world applications. For good and, well, for not so good. The first and most obvious use is espionage. Just picture it. A beetle, equipped with a microphone, is released outside a building. It slips under a door, crawls up a wall, and just sits there on a bookshelf recording every single word.
It won't trigger a motion sensor. It won't show up on a thermal scan because it's a living warm-blooded, well, not warm-blooded, but you get it. It's a living thing. It is, for all intents and purposes, the perfect spy. But then you have the heroic side of the coin. Think about disaster zones. An earthquake hits, a building collapses. You could release a whole swarm of cyborg cockroaches. Now I know, cockroaches, yuck, but they are naturally built to navigate through rubble. You equip them with tiny CO2 sensors, and they can crawl deep into voids that are way too small and dangerous for humans or even robots, homing in on the breath of trapped survivors. They could literally save lives. And you can take this idea and scale it way up. Imagine there's a nuclear meltdown or a massive chemical spill. You could release thousands of sensor-equipped cyborg moths. Each one becomes a flying, mobile data point. Together, they create this living, breathing, real-time map of the contamination zone, a level of detail that no satellite or drone could ever hope to replicate. Okay, but with all this incredible power comes a set of really troubling questions. Because when you start hacking life itself, you are staring into a pretty serious ethical abyss. And this really is the central question, isn't it? When we can override an animal's most basic instincts, when we can take complete control of its body and steer it around like a remote control car, what is it anymore? Is it still an animal, or is it just a biological machine? Where does that line get drawn? And that question leads us to these huge dilemmas. First, there's the whole question of animal rights. We're overriding the insect's response to harm, its ability to feel pain and react. We're completely stripping away its biological autonomy. Then there's weaponization. What if that beetle isn't carrying a tiny microphone? What if it's carrying a tiny payload of a deadly toxin or a pathogen? It could deliver its payload and then just die, leaving absolutely no forensic trace. And finally, there's the slippery slope. I mean, let's be real, the same principles, the same technologies used to hotwire a beetle's brain are the foundational steps for things like Neuralink in humans. So if we're okay with this today, where do we draw the line tomorrow? So the next time you see a moth fluttering around your porch light or a beetle crawling on your windowsill, maybe take a closer look. You might just be seeing a simple, beautiful creature of nature. Or you just might be witnessing the dawn of a new bio-integrated age. Because that line between what's a product of evolution and what's a product of engineering, well, it's getting blurrier every single day.